saranang gacchami tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. To observe the 5 precepts, say after me. I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from killing beings.
abstaining from killing beings.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from stealing.
abstaining from stealing.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from sexual misconduct.
abstaining from sexual misconduct.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from telling lies.
abstaining from telling lies.
I observe the precept of
I observe the precept of
abstaining from taking
abstaining from taking
intoxicating drinks and drugs
intoxicating drinks and drugs
with the refuge of the noble triple gem.
with the refuge of the noble triple gem.
I observe these precepts
I observe these precepts
for happiness in this life,
for happiness in this life,
for rebirth in heaven,
for rebirth in heaven,
to escape from the sufferings of samsara.
to escape from the sufferings of samsara.
May it help me and be a blessing.
May it help me and be a blessing.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, for the last 2 weeks, we discussed Anapanasati Bhavana, and I'm assuming you guys had time to practice that, since you guys said you would. Chaturma, did you do it for 2 weeks?
I practice but not continuously.
No, Bhavana doesn't work like that. You have to practice continuously. Meditation is something you have to do. Consistency is what makes it matter, like is what's most important about meditation. Because otherwise we keep dropping, we keep restarting otherwise. So I'm sure there's a lot of other people here. For example, I don't remember exactly who was here. But your homework was to practice Anapanasati for every single day for these last 2 weeks. But today we're going to start a new meditation. Before we do that, since this meditation doesn't really have anything we can do together, for the first few minutes, we'll practice Anapanasati together. And then after that, we will talk about this meditation, which is it's not very long explanation. And then you guys can ask, and we'll have a short question and answer session at the very end. So everyone sit in a comfortable position. Again, for Anapanasati, what's important? It's important to keep your back straight, to have your back aligned. Now, everyone close your eyes. Now, first, bring your attention to how your head is placed. Then bring your attention to see if there's any stress in your head. If there's any stress around your eyebrows, any tension, let go. Then bring awareness to your shoulders. If there's any tension or stress, let go. Then bring your attention to your arms. See how they're placed. Make sure they're placed in a comfortable position. Then bring attention to how your legs are placed. Make sure they're comfortable as well. Now, keeping your back straight, slowly bring your attention to your breath. We don't want to forcefully breathe. We simply want to watch and observe the breath. We're observing the breath come in and come out. When there's a breath in, you can think breath in. When there's a breath out, you can think breath out. Again, we're not forcing the breath. We're simply observing it. If there's any distracting thoughts, simply remove them. At this moment, our only focus should be on the breath, not about controlling it, but observing it. We're simply watching the breath go in and go out. Each time you get distracted, bring your attention back to the breath. Okay, you can slowly open your eyes. Now, that's something we've had a bit of practice with now, breathing meditation. We've covered that for these 2 weeks. Now, today we're going to be starting the next bhavana or the next meditation in 𝗏-नुपाssana, which is 𝗏𝗏, which means mindfulness of postures. But before we talk about this, last week we talked about two types of main meditations. That means there's two types of bhavana when you do it. There's samatha bhavana and vidarshana bhavana. Now, I'm going to share screens. Can you guys see my screen? Now, last week we said there's two types: samatha, serenity, and vidarshana, insight. Now, serenity bhavana or samatha bhavana, the goal is to get to suppress these hindrances, to get rid of these hindrances. And the goal of vidarshana is to develop impermanence, suffering, and non-self, like these mindsets within us. This vidarshana part only exists during a Buddhist time. That means only when there's a Buddhist dispensation, only when there's the Buddhist teachings, do you ever get a chance to develop vidarshana. And it's important to understand why we should not miss this chance to develop our meditation. So in any time, you can, at any time, if someone's in the human world, they can develop samatha, okay? But this vidarshana part only exists, like we mentioned, when there's a Buddha. Now, this vidarshana is what helps us abandon something called the fetters. So there's 10 fetters, there's 10 things that bind us to birth. There's 10 things that cause us to be born again and again and again. And those are split as the lower fetters and the higher fetters. So the lower fetters are things that send us to the lower worlds. Okay? Now this might seem confusing, but just keep these ideas. So lower fetters send us to a lower place. Higher fetters send us to a higher place. Now, what does a lower place mean? The Buddha describes it as the sense. So there's three main places where someone can be born. Three realms, you can say. Either the sense worlds, either the form worlds, or the formless worlds. Those are, if there's a being that exists, they are either in the sense world, the form world, or the formless world. Everyone understand? If there's a part that you don't understand, you have to tell me. So these lower fetters send us to this sense world. And these higher fetters send us to the form and the formless worlds. Okay, these are the three bhavas, if you guys remember that. Now, when someone practices vidarshana, after they've trained their mind with samatha, they've suppressed the hindrances, then they can develop vidarshana, and they can enter the first stage of enlightenment, the first path, because it doesn't mean you just instantly become enlightened. The first stage of enlightenment is Satipaṭṭhāna. Okay, that means stream enter. When someone's a stream enter, they get rid of these three lower fetters. So self-view, wrong rituals and practices, and doubt are gone from them. Because they're gone, now we said these lower fetters send us to the lower worlds, which is the sense world. Sense world has these worlds within it: hell, the asura world, the ghost world, and the animal world. And it also has the human world and the deva worlds. These are the 4 bad destinations, and these are some good destiny: human world and deva worlds. As soon as we get rid of these 3 things, as soon as someone gets rid of these 3 things, he becomes a stream enter. That means these worlds, he can no longer be born in them: in the hell, in the asura world, and the ghost world, and animal world. Why? Because these fetters are no longer there. These 3 things send us to these worlds. Those are gone. And then if someone becomes the second stage, which is Sakadagami, these are reduced. Sakadagami means once returner. So he only returns once to either the human world or the Deva world. Everyone understand? Chaturma, does that make sense? Shaka? Karu, do you understand? And then someone comes to the third stage, which is anagami, non-returner. A non-returner gets rid of these two. So now so that means he's gotten rid of every single thing that pulls us to a lower place. That means all of these births, the human world and their world, completely eliminated for him. He can no longer be born in the sense worlds. So where does he have any choice left? He can either go to the form world or the formless worlds. That's why these higher fetters are craving for form and craving for the formless. So these 5 fetters, these higher ones, are there until someone becomes arahant. Then, only then are all 5 of these eliminated. And then, since he's eliminated all of those, birth is complete. He can't be born in any of these places. So the chance to remove these fetters, the chance to get rid of these, only happens through vidarshana. Okay, that means the only chance someone has to get rid of these fetters is during a Buddhist dispensation. Why? Because vidarshana doesn't exist outside of a Buddhist dispensation. You can't practice thinking of impermanence, suffering, and non-self when there's no Buddha, when there's no Dhamma, when there's no Sangha. But in order to develop these three views properly, someone needs a concentrated mind. He needs to have a high meditative state. He needs to have a mind that's able to investigate these 3 things within the world. In order to do that, someone needs to have developed samatha. In order to do that, he needs to have suppressed these 5. And that's where most of these meditations that we learn, the first portion, what we're doing is we're actually practicing samatha. So in this Iryapati, or mindfulness of postures, the Supreme Buddha teaches, this is how a monk contemplates. This is how someone thinks. He says, the Supreme Buddha teaches, when a monk is walking, when someone is walking, he understands, I am walking. So this is mindfulness of postures. What's the first one? When someone is walking, he understands, I am walking. So that's the first posture. When someone's walking, what does he understand? I'm walking. So what does that even mean? That means he's bringing awareness to what he's doing, to his posture. Now, everyone here walks, right? Every single person here walks. But then why didn't this develop? Why didn't your mindfulness develop? Everyone walks. You guys all walk. I walk. We've walked for as many years as we've been alive. Maybe not the first 10 months, but after that, so why didn't it develop? It's because we didn't bring awareness. We weren't mindful as we walked. So what does this monk do? What does this person do? When he walks, he understands, I am walking. And then when he's standing, he understands, I am standing. So when he's walking, he knows he's walking. When he's standing, he knows he's standing. Again, what's he doing? He's bringing awareness to his posture. Now this probably sounds very easy. Oh, you just know I'm standing. That's so easy. But this isn't just being aware that you're standing. This is removing defilements as you bring awareness to you standing. So that means, so I'll explain the rest and then I'll come back to that idea. Then when someone is sitting, he understands, I'm sitting. So when he's walking, when he's standing, and when he's sitting, he understands all 3 of these postures. And finally, when he's lying down, he understands, I'm lying down. And he understands however his body is placed. He understands, he's aware of how his body is placed completely. So when he's standing, when he's walking, when he's standing, when he's sitting, and when he's lying down, he understands all of these postures. Now this seems very easy, doesn't it? You walk, you sit, you stand, and you lie down. But the hard part here is not doing those things. The hard part here is bringing mindfulness to those postures. So there's another in the next meditation. The next meditation is called Sampajanya. Now that meditation is a more developed version of this, really, which is when someone's looking, he knows, he understands he's looking. It's like a more advanced version of this. So this week, I want you guys to practice this on top of your sitting down meditation. Why? Because this is something you can do. So when we covered anapanasati isn't something you can do while standing or walking or lying down. You have to be sitting. But this meditation is something you can practice no matter what you're doing, no matter where you're going. Why? Because you're going to be in one of these 4 postures, right? Even if no matter what you're doing, you're going to be in one of these 4 postures. You're going to be either walking, either standing, lying down, or sitting. So what does that mean? So let's say you guys are sitting at work, and then your boss comes in, starts yelling at you. And at that moment, what happens? Anger arises. Anger arises, and then what does this person do who's practicing this meditation, who's practicing mindfulness of postures? Instead of focusing on that anger, he focuses on his posture. He brings his attention, I'm sitting right now. And he's fully aware that he's sitting. Now, to understand that, someone just scratched their ear. Now, when let's say our ear is itchy, I explained this analogy before. Let's say our ear is itchy. Now, when we go to scratch our ear, do we think I'm bringing my hand up, it's coming closer to my ear, now I'm scratching my ear, now there's a feel? Do we think that? No, we just do that without any mindfulness. But in this, when we're sitting down, he's bringing mindfulness to his posture. He's bringing mindfulness to understand that he's sitting. When he brings mindfulness there, that defilement that would have arisen if there was no mindfulness can't arise anymore. That means when he's being mindful about sitting, that anger has no room to arise. Why? Because the mind is currently occupied. Does that make sense? The mind is busy thinking about sitting. The mind is being mindful about his posture, about sitting. So then when we hear harsh words, when sounds come to our ear that are unpleasant, a defilement doesn't arise because the mind doesn't focus on that. The mind is currently busy with his posture. Whether he's standing, let's say you're standing on the bus or the train, just waiting for someone. When he's standing, what does he do? He brings mindfulness to him standing, to that posture. As he does that, any defilements that can arise, if he wasn't being mindful, can't arise anymore. When he's walking, let's say you're walking somewhere, you're walking to school, you're walking in the park, you're walking wherever you are, any defilements that would arise otherwise doesn't arise. Now, like this seems like, okay, I do this normally. Normally I don't get angry. Normally I don't get upset when I walk. But this is talking about something completely different. So in the past, there were monks, and these monks would get together and then they would say, if you get a defilement in your mind while walking for alms, like monks, they take their bowl and then they would walk to the village and then stand at the door and then get alms and then go to the next door, get alms, and then so forth. You guys know about that, right? Pindapate. You've heard about that? So these monks agreed, when we walk towards the village, if someone gets a defilement in their mind, That means if anger, if lust, if jealousy, ill will, any defilement, anything that makes the mind impure arises in your mind, stop walking. When you stop walking, all the monks behind you will stop walking. So they made a pact like this. If you get a defilement, stop walking, and then we'll stop walking. So what would these monks do? When they walk, a monk gets a defilement. Maybe anger arises. He stops, and all the monks behind him stop. Now, that monk knows these monks behind me know that I'm thinking something bad. Why? Because he stopped. So all the people behind him know. Imagine you guys are doing something and a defilement arises, and all the people around you know what's inside your head. Wouldn't you guys be embarrassed? Wouldn't you want to get rid of that thought immediately? But right now, all the people around you can't read your mind, so you think it's fine. But if you raised your hand every time you had a defilement, people would know, oh, this person's thinking something bad right now. In the same way, when that monk stops, all the monks behind him know this monk has a bad thought right now. So he gets energy to remove that defilement. So what does he do? He brings mindfulness to either his posture. He brings mindfulness to how his body is placed and tries to get rid of that defilement. But sometimes that doesn't work. Then he sits down and all the other monks behind him sit down. And then until he gets rid of that defilement, all those other monks stay with him. So that's how in the past, these monks would abandon defilements, would try to get rid of these bad impurities in the mind. That takes a lot of energy. These monks didn't practice this for a week or a few days, practiced for 19, 20, 30 years, for a long time, for a long period of their life. So when he does this, you guys, when we practice this, when you practice being mindful to our postures, we're developing at first samatha. That means each time a hindrance arises, like for example, when those monks are walking, if he sees a beautiful flower and he thinks this is a beautiful flower, he has to stop walking. Why? Because that's sensual pleasure. If he sees a nice looking dog and he thinks that's a cute dog, he has to stop walking. That's one of the hindrances. If he thinks I'm going to go back to my kuti and then arrange it like this so it looks nice when I walk, when I come back to my kuti, to my residence, that's sensual pleasure. He has to stop walking. So these hindrances aren't as coarse as we think. Like, it's not just lust for people. It's very, very small types of lust. For example, let's say we're walking and we think, I'm going to plant this in my garden. I'm going to plant these types of flowers. I'm going to arrange my garden this way. That's sensual pleasure. That's one of the hindrances. Those are all fine things that arise in our mind. Normally, we don't think those as something bad, but those all count as sensual pleasure. And it might be something we see. Let's say we're walking down the street and we see someone, let's say hitting an animal, for example. Let's say someone kicks a dog. Immediately what happens, based on what we see, our mind gets conflicted. A defilement arises, anger arises. That's one of the hindrances. That monk has to stop. So what does this person do? Instead of focusing on these outside things, instead of focusing on these things that cause defilements to arise, that cause the hindrances to develop, he focuses on his posture. So what's he developing? At every moment of his day, he's focusing on how his posture is. As he does this, what's he doing? He's suppressing the hindrances from arising. Every time an enemy comes, he focuses his mind on his posture and gets rid of that. Does that make sense? So he brings awareness, whether he's walking, whether he's standing, whether he's sitting, or whether he's lying down. Each of these steps, he does this. And as he does this, what's he doing? He's developing samatha. So if someone practices this all day, let's say from the time he wakes up to the time he sleeps, let's say someone practices this and then comes back and sits down and practices anapanasati. Will it develop or will it not develop? What do you guys think? Let's say you guys go to school, go to work, you don't practice any of this. You think about work, you think about family, you think about problems in your life, you come sit down and then you try to practice meditation for 10 minutes. You think you can focus on that? No, your mind is going to go from work to your family, to your friends, to your problems. It's going to be completely really you trying to focus for 10 minutes, not really developing meditation. But let's say throughout the day, from the moment you wake up, you're aware, as soon as you wake up, at this moment I'm lying down. Then that recollection of that problem in your life isn't there at that moment. While you're focusing on thinking about lying down, then you change your posture and you sit up in bed. Now I'm sitting. Then what do? You put your feet on the ground and you stand up. Now I'm standing. Then what do? You grab your toothbrush and you go to the bathroom, right? To brush your teeth. Then you understand, I'm walking. And then what do? And then as you stand, you're brushing your teeth. I'm standing right now. And then you continue your day like this. As he does this, every chance for a bad thought to arise during his day is suppressed. Now, this is ideal conditions. What really happens is you wake up and then immediately you think, what am I going to eat for breakfast? I wonder what someone made. And then immediately a problem comes. And then you think, no, wait, I'm supposed to be practicing mindfulness of postures. And then you practice mindfulness of postures for like 5 seconds. And then you walk to the bathroom and then again, a problem comes into your mind. And then again, no, you think, no, wait, I'm supposed to be practicing this. And then you come, that's going to be your normal day. But at least you're coming back to thinking about mindfulness of postures. As you do this, it's not going to happen in one day where your whole day is just going to be completely thinking about your posture. This is going to be hard. But the more you practice this, the easier it becomes. The easier your mind gets, like the easier the mind has, the easier it is for the mind to focus on your posture instead of that defilement. So as you practice this, your mind will slowly adapt to that and get used to thinking about your posture. So I want you guys to practice this. Then when you sit down to meditate, whatever meditation it is, your mind has been, what's it been doing the whole day? It's been suppressing these unwanted thoughts, these 5 hindrances. So when you sit down and meditate, those 5 hindrances aren't as powerful. Your mind has just like done a strong, like a full training day of getting rid of the hindrances. So when you sit down and a thought of ill will arises, immediately your mind knows I should get rid of this. When a thought of sensual pleasure arises, immediately your mind gets rid of it. Why? Because that's what you've been practicing all day. Does that make sense? So this week, until we discuss Sampajanya, which is the more advanced version of this, every single day this week, you guys should practice this, however much you can. From the moment you wake up to when you go to sleep, you should practice bringing mindfulness to your posture. That way, when you come to Sampajanya, which is a little bit harder than this, your mind, like you've done some preparation for that. It won't be as difficult. Does that make sense? And this next one we're going to talk about is something you have to practice for the rest of your life. Like this too, but this one, you can't ever develop anything without practicing this. Like this is, if someone wants to meditate, you're going to have to, every single arahant, whoever became enlightened, had to have practiced this. Because this is how you develop mindfulness. Like this is the actual training, not just sitting down and meditating. So we'll talk about that next time. So this week, your homework, if you guys are going to do it, is to practice every day, bringing mindfulness to your posture. Ishaka, did you understand?
Am I? Like
Is it? Huh?
Like, does it have to be one of those 4? Like if you're running or jogging?
So that you can bring attention to that, how your body is placed at that moment. Because at the end it says, he understands accordingly, however his body is placed. So however his body is whatever posture it's in, he understands. And then what happens is, as he develops this, as he develops samatha, then he realizes, because if someone develops this meditation, he can go to vidarshana, he can go to insight meditation through this, and he can become arahant, he can become fully enlightened. That's the ending of this meditation. How does he do that? He understands, as you develop mindfulness in this, he understands every posture comes about through intention. For example, when you walk in the room, as you guys sat down on your chair, you did that with intention. There was an intention there. We might not notice it, but there's an intention there for us to sit down, for us to stand up, for us to walk. As he develops mindfulness on his postures, he slowly starts seeing that every single posture has intention behind it. He sees there's a cause and effect, and as he develops this mindset that there's a cause for these postures, he realizes this posture only exists as long as there's a cause. If the cause isn't there, the effect isn't there. What does he see? He sees his cause and effect. And through that, he starts seeing that this body is something made up of the 4 great elements. These 4 great elements are changed in position based on intention. We're just moving around these 4 great elements. These 4 great elements will cease as long as the cause ceases. And what's he developing? He's developing insight. And as he does this, the 7 enlightenment factors develop. As the 7 enlightenment factors develop, he is able to realize 2 things: vidya vimukti, knowledge and liberation. So that's how you go from samatha, from this part, to vidarshana through this same meditation. He sees really the panch upadana skandha. He sees form, vedana, form, feeling, perception, intention, and the consciousness. Now, we didn't go into detail about any of that, but just this week, your goal is to worry about being mindful about the posture. Okay? Maya, do you understand? Okay, so that's the end of this meditation. It's not very long. Does anyone have any questions related to this meditation before we ask common questions? Karu, did you understand everything? You can teach me now? Who else is here? Terika, did you understand? Is Terika there? Chamal?
Yes. Yes, I understand.
Okay.
And I hope to do it.
Oh yeah, I need everyone to say whether they're gonna do it or not. Vishaka, did you do Anapanasati the past 2 weeks?
I did, but not continuously and not for a long time.
Very
Like
good.
not
Keep
long
doing
enough.
it. Don't do this either. Maya turned her video off. She definitely didn't do it. And then Nimala, are you gonna practice this for this next week?
Yes.
Okay. Chamalika, she there?
Yes, Swaminwahansa, not every day, but most of the days I try to do that.
You mean Anapanasati or this?
Anapanasati, and I sometimes do this also.
Okay, this you have to practice every day.
Yeah, but not all the time consciously.
No, I mean with, like, let's say you forget, that's completely different. But you should have an idea that I'm gonna do this every day.
Yes.
Do you have that idea?
Yeah, when I'm doing other work also, I sort of like try to, focus at least on the walking parts. When I'm walking some distances, then I try to do it. Not all the time.
Okay. Who was it? Tisuri? Tusuri there?
Yes, I will try my best. Ideally, I would like to do this every day.
Okay. Sumedha there? Well, Vic, is Vic there? Chamara?
Yes, Swami answer. I'm on my first, this is my first lecture, I think. I'm attending this lecture. I just wanted to ask you one question,
Yes.
if that's possible, a short one. You mentioned about mindfulness, taking mindfulness. Is it like mindfulness is as a kind of like we taking full in charge of our activity, like standing, sitting, like taking full control of doing this kind of things, like?
It's more, so it is, so right now, like let's say when we're standing,
Yeah.
we're doing that with intention. We're not doing that without intention. We're bringing awareness to that, that activity that we're doing this with an intention. Like you bring awareness to that. Does that make sense? So let's say,
makes sense.
like let's say we're sitting down watching a show and then we suddenly just rub our head, right?
Yes.
That usually that action of rubbing our head, we do it without any awareness. Why? Because we're focused on watching the TV show.
Okay.
But even though we're doing that, there's intention here. Otherwise, your hand won't just magically move up and rub your head. So what does that person do? He brings awareness to his hand moving up. Well, this is really the next meditation, but
Yes.
what does he do? He brings awareness to him sitting down, that I'm sitting down right now.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Answer. Thank you so much.
Chamara, is Chamara there?
Yes, this is actually my first day, so I will try my best to at least few days a week. I will try my best.
Okay, good. Abiru there? You're muted.
This is actually my first week joining this. This because of school, I could join this week, and for the rest of the week, I'll try to practice these bhavana.
Okay, good. Jinali? Is Jinali there?
Yes, Swami answer. I am practicing.
Okay, good. Okay, Chatum, I didn't ask you.
Also, Sir, during the weekdays, I get some time while I'm going back to my home after office. So during that time, I normally practice loving kindness meditation in the vehicle.
Okay.
Then if you talk about this breathing meditation, I practice when I'm back home after worshipping Lord Buddha. So then, but it's not for a long time. Maximum I can focus 5 minutes time. Then get distractions and feel sleepy also because of the work fed up, I think. But I try my best.
Okay. Nirmal, do you have a question?
Yes. Is there any mantra to keep the mind calm?
No, the Buddha doesn't teach any mantras. There's only cause and effect, meaning there's a reason for calmness in the mind. If someone develops the reason, then they can achieve calmness. If someone does that make sense?
Yeah, but there are different suttas, right? Like Karniya Metta Sutta and
that's
the
more
other
yeah.
chantings. Any chanting with
mean
which
like
we
that?
can keep our mind calm?
Well, the Supreme Buddha teaches it's not really the chanting that makes the mind calm. For example, in Dajjagga Sutta, when the Buddha teaches that there's in that sutta, he teaches if someone has fear, if someone has a troubled mind, he can recollect the Buddha's qualities. As he recollects the Buddha's qualities, any trouble or any fear or anything like that, anything in the mind like that will disappear. If he recollects the Dhamma, if he recollects the Sangha, in the same way as he recollects these three things, the triple gem, then any fear or trouble in his mind will disappear. And in the past, we talked about how we can switch from unwanted thoughts to not having those. Like, let's say we have thoughts that trouble us. There are many ways to get rid of those thoughts. For example, thinking about something wholesome you did. That means thinking about, like, let's say you gave a dana, you offered food, you gave someone some food to the homeless, whatever it is, some good thing you practice. When you think about that, your mind gets calm as well. If you contemplate on the meaning of those chantings, for example, you mentioned 𝗪𝗔𝗔 Sutta, Dajagga Sutta, Ratana Sutta, any of these chantings, if you contemplate the meaning, what does your mind do? Your mind focuses on something wholesome. Your mind is focusing on the Dhamma, really. As you do that, your mind will get calm. So it's not really about just the chanting itself, it's about contemplating the meaning while chanting. Does that make sense? Is he even there? Okay, I hope that answered your question.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Chamalika, you have a question?
අවසරයි ස්වාමීන් වහන්සේ. Now when you're doing this ඊරියාපත භාවනාව, now when I'm doing it, now say when you keep your foot and then you there is a small time span till you keep the other foot. So during that time, actually I find that a lot of other thoughts come into my mind. Although when I keep the other foot, yes, my focus goes back into it. But between that few seconds, there's a rush of, things that comes to the mind. So how can I sort of...
How long does it take to place your foot?
I mean...
Are you walking in slow motion?
Only a few seconds, but...
To place your foot?
Yeah, because I don't know, because I'm conscious that I'm getting this. But I mean, I feel that, but then between that tiny space also, there's a lot of thoughts that comes in.
So then that really means that our awareness is not with our posture at that moment. Why? Because the mind can only stay with one thing at a time. So what we should understand from that is how weak, well, I'm not saying you, but everyone here, how we need to develop our mindfulness. So I don't think like let's say this is important. Like you mentioned that maybe since you're conscious about like placing your feet, you might be walking slower. Like don't do that around people. Like people will just look at you like, what's this person doing? He's walking so slow. He's moving so slowly. Whenever you practice meditations, whenever you develop any good qualities, the value of that good quality is the fact that it's hidden. The fact that it's within ourselves. The fact that we're developing it without showing it to the world. It's very, very important with meditations that you don't do this to like where you're in a place where you're just showing that you're meditating. Because those people will look at you weirdly. But it's also important that when we practice this, we shouldn't like knowingly slow down our process, like to the point where it's like awkward, to the point where it's like weird. We should try with our normal procedure, with our normal way of like day-to-day life, of trying to bring awareness to what we're doing at that moment. So like, let's say you're walking, then first, instead of worrying about each footstep, bring awareness to that entire walking path. So let's say, instead of worrying about the footsteps, let's say I'm going from here to the end of the room, worry about that entire path. Don't worry about each footstep. Worry about the path first. I'm going to go from here to the entire room without a defilement coming into my mind. Then you walk there. Then you walk back. I'm going to walk back without a defilement coming into my mind. And then after you develop that, then worry about, okay, I'm going to take a few steps without defilements arising. Then you start worrying about each footstep. Does that make sense? Okay, I hope that answered your question. Does that make sense?
I will try that and see.
Okay. Abiru, do you have a question?
Yeah. So this question is not really about mindfulness, so is it okay to ask it?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So here, like near where I live, people when they're trying to say that they're not lying, like they say like on God, like they swear on God. So I was just wondering, like, is that okay for us to do like on Buddha or something, or is that wrong?
So normally, well, we don't lie. Like that's one of the precepts, which is you refrain from lying. And we want to tell the truth. You just tell the truth. You don't need to say on the Dhamma, on the Sang. You don't need to say any of that. Why? Because when like I'll give you an example. Before a monk ordained, one of the monks, he didn't drink alcohol. So then after, his friends like drank alcohol though. So his friends would try to make him drink alcohol. They would secretly put stuff into like juice and stuff and then say it's fine, it doesn't have alcohol. But that person was very, very smart. And whenever there was like an event or a gathering, he wouldn't drink any of that stuff. He would just drink water and then he would still hang out with his friends. Then eventually, after a time, his friends realized this person doesn't drink. And his friends would come and say, that juice has alcohol, don't drink it. So when someone's a rigid character, then the people around him don't need to be convinced of his virtue. So let's say there's someone who doesn't lie. After a time, he doesn't need to say things to convince these people that I'm not a liar. Based on his words, based on how he speaks, people come to the understanding this is someone who doesn't lie. He doesn't have to prove himself for it. He says, whatever he sees, people will have a trust with those words. That trust arises from that. So you don't need to say on God, on Buddha, or anything to convince someone. If you just speak the truth, eventually people will understand this is someone who speaks the truth, and they will believe your words. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Could Sansa explain how to do mindfulness of eating, like step by step?
Of eating?
On eating, like when you eat?
So when you eat, you can practice a lot of different meditations. You can practice impermanence. You can practice contemplating feelings. You can practice the foulness of the food itself. You can practice even idiapati while eating. So like which one do you mean, like specifically?
Like impermanence, I think.
Okay, let's say you practice impermanence with food. Let's say when you first see the food, what happens? A feeling arises, right? Let's say your favorite food is coming. Let's say, what's your favorite food?
Chocolate mousse.
Okay, let's say chocolate. Someone's bringing chocolate mousse on a tray and it's coming towards you. As soon as you see it, what happens? A pleasant feeling arises. You think, hey, it's coming closer to me. I'm going to eat that soon. You're not thinking that, but that's what's going on. So what's happening? A form and the eyes are coming together with eye consciousness. And those three things come together. What's it called? Eye contact. Through eye contact, feelings arise, perceptions arise. So that feeling, that happiness only arose due to contact with the eye, the form, and eye consciousness. Is your eye permanent or impermanent?
Impermanent.
Is that form, is that chocolate mousse permanent or impermanent?
Impermanent.
Is the eye consciousness permanent or impermanent?
Permanent.
Then when those three things come together, what's it called? Eye contact. Eye contact is made up of impermanent things. So is it impermanent or permanent?
Impermanent.
And that eye contact is what gave rise to that feeling, right? Now, is that feeling then permanent or impermanent?
Impermanent.
Impermanent. So then that happy feeling that we get from just seeing the food coming is impermanent. There's nothing to get attached about. And he contemplates that. Then let's say you smell the chocolate. Oh, that's good chocolate. That's good quality. And you smell this has good quantity of chocolate in it. Then that smell gives you a happy feeling, or whatever kind of feeling. Maybe the chocolate mousse is bad. It smells rancid. The milk has gone bad. Then you think this unpleasant feeling also arose due to contact through the nose, the smell, and the nose consciousness. And again, you contemplate in the same way. Then let's say it was good, and then you put it in your mouth. Now you're eating it. Now what's happening? A feeling is arising at each mouthful. A pleasant feeling, it could be an unpleasant feeling or a neutral feeling. Each of those feelings are arising through contact. And then he's contemplating these feelings arise and disappearing. And he sees the impermanence in each step. Does that make sense? Nimala, you have a question?
Yes. How can one get rid of craving and aversion?
Craving and aversion? So
Yes.
to get rid of craving, someone has to practice. There's the Supreme Buddha, first I'll tell you the basics. The Supreme Buddha teaches something called the Four Noble Truths. His entire Dhamma, his entire teaching is the Four Noble Truths. Every single discourse, every single sutta, anything that the Buddha taught is the Four Noble Truths in just different words. The first noble truth is that there's something called suffering in the world, meaning there's birth, aging, sickness, death. All of these things are suffering in our world. Whatever you can think of that suffering is suffering. Then there's a cause for suffering. So the first noble truth is suffering. The second one is the cause of suffering. And the cause of suffering, the Supreme Buddha teaches, is craving. Why? Because today, how many people died today? Do you know? Over 150,000 people died, but none of you are crying here. Why? Because you don't have any attachment to those people. But if your loved ones, if someone close to you dies, immediately sadness arises. So then it's because we have craving. It's because that craving was there that suffering arose. So craving is the cause of suffering. Then there's the cessation of suffering, which is the third noble truth. The cessation of suffering means getting rid of craving. So then how do we do that? That's the fourth noble truth, the path to the cessation of suffering. That is called the path to getting rid of craving, really. The Noble Eightfold Path. If someone develops the Noble Eightfold Path, then they are developing the path to get rid of craving. Now, the Noble Eightfold Path, I just told you very, very shortly, is something you can't explain really in 5-10 minutes. Something you'd explain it to develop and practice your entire life. For example, like when you learn the Dhamma, you're coming to the very, very first worldly portion of that Noble Eightfold Path, which is right view. So, for example, someone comes to the view, killing is bad. Some people think killing is good. There's people in this world who think mercy killing is okay. So he comes to the view, killing creates bad karma. Then he thinks giving, offering things, I'm just giving examples, offering things creates good merit, good karma, and so forth. As he learns the Dhamma, his view changes. His view comes in line with the Buddha's teaching. As he practices the Dhamma for more and more, his view causes him to act accordingly to the Dhamma. He stops killing, he stops stealing, he stops committing sexual misconduct, he stops telling lies, and he stops drinking alcohol and intoxicants. As he does this, he's developing the Dhamma. He's developing the worldly portion of the Noble Eightfold Path. And then as he practices meditation, if he can develop dhyana and practice vidarshana, then he can develop vidarshana enough to get rid of those lower fetters. And then if he removes the first three, he becomes sotapanna and so forth. As he does this, slowly craving in his life is being cut out. Does that make sense? So it's a long path. I just give you a very, very short version of that.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Any other questions? Vishaka, you have a question?
So there's this girl that I'm helping, and she feels very guilty. So like, I want to know what kind of meditation I can advise her to do to remove the guilt.
What's she feeling guilty over though?
So her grandma had hit her, so she blames herself for that abuse, even though it's really not her fault. Her grandma had abused her, had hit her when she was small, so she blames herself for it.
But how?
Like, she
Okay,
has.
well, then impermanence is a good meditation for that. Because now that suffering she's feeling, for example, let's say that painful feeling that arose when her grandmother was hitting her, that feeling isn't even there anymore. That incident happened years ago. So now she's causing herself mental pain by herself. As she contemplates that, what is she doing? She's contemplating something that doesn't exist anymore. She's going back to the past. As she does this, painful feelings are arising. As she does that, that painful feeling, some people also get attached to that painful feeling. For example, let's say a mosquito bites us. Now, when a mosquito bites us, it gets red and there's a little bump. And then what do? We scratch it, right? Now, when we scratch it, does it feel good or bad? When we scratch it, it feels good. So what does this person do? He keeps scratching it. But if someone wants that mosquito bite to get better, what should he do? He should stop scratching it. He has to understand that this is something that disappears, that gets fixed after abandoning it. So those feelings, that painful incident that happened is in the past. He has to contemplate that this is something that's already passed. There's not that maybe that grandmother is dead now. All those painful feelings she's suffering is something that doesn't exist anymore. It's impermanent, it's gone, it's changed. So instead of bringing up the past, she has to think about the present moment and think about moving forward. Just because she's guilty, that past won't change and the present won't change either, will it? Can she go back and stop her grandma from hitting her? No. So then she has to understand that this is something just by thinking about, just by feeling guilty or just by whatever sadness we experience, we can't change the past. Does that make sense? Any other questions? When we walk, we imagine what to do. Someone asked, when we walk, we imagine what to do next. But when we keep on watching the walking posture, how do we manage it? Okay, I'm gonna give you back the analogy of scratching your nose. Now your hand started where? Started here, right? Now this hand coming from here to here didn't just instantly come like this, right? What happened? As each millisecond passed, this hand was going like this, slowly coming to my nose. Does that make sense? It didn't just magically go from here to here. But at each stage, didn't I know that my hand was slowly moving up towards my nose? So let's say you're walking down a path. Being aware of your posture doesn't mean you're aware of like, you're trying to bring awareness to every single movement of your feet when we start off. You're simply aware that you're walking. It means my legs are going forward and backwards, let's say. I'm walking right now. You understand you're walking. When you bring awareness like that, then no outside defilements come. No outside thoughts come. Why? Your mind is focused on thinking about, being aware of you're moving. So as in like let's say you bring your hand up, you're just aware that your hand is going up. Okay, my hand is coming up. Like you don't need to think anything extra. Like as I'm aware of my hand coming up, try practicing that. Everyone try bringing your hand to your nose with awareness. Try moving your hand up to your nose with awareness. You don't need to do slow motion. Just bring your hand up. You know your hand is coming up. As you do this, now switch hands and do that. You guys look silly. So as you do this, you're developing mindfulness here. That's the important part. When you practice this, you're bringing awareness to these postures, and any outside thoughts that might cause defilements are prevented from arising. Does that make sense? Okay, I hope that answers your question. If someone has another question, they can ask. Nimmala, you have another question?
Yes. How to have a peaceful sleep because mind is restless even during sleep, so.
Okay, that's a good question. So one meditation has really the entire sleep process covered. And this meditation has the first three benefits of this meditation are this person sleeps well. That means this person doesn't have to toss and turn trying to fall asleep. This person sleeps like a baby. As soon as he gets to bed, falls asleep. And then the second benefit is this person wakes up feeling good. That means wakes up without feeling tired, without feeling groggy. He wakes up feeling refreshed. And the third benefit is during that time from going to sleep and waking up, he has no nightmares. So his entire sleep process is covered. And then meditation is loving kindness. If someone practices loving kindness continuously, he develops it. He makes it, in the discourse, he says, he makes it his vehicle. That means wherever he goes, he has a mind of loving kindness. Wherever he goes, he thinks, may all beings be well. That's what he goes to work with. That's what he cooks with. That's what he walks with. Just that thought, may all beings be well. When someone develops this mindset consistently, then that person gets those first three benefits and 8 other more, but those are the first three benefits. So practice loving kindness, and that'll help you to sleep better. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Yes, Nimmala, you can ask.
By doing wholesome karma, by doing wholesome deeds, can one purify the mind from the root level?
So no matter how much merit someone has, because doing merit doesn't disappear from the world. Like even when there's no Buddha, you can do merit. Even when there's no Dhamma, even when there's no Sangha, someone can collect merit. If you help someone, you collect merit. Like whether the Buddha is there or not. But if someone wants to escape from suffering, that means abandon all this craving, then he has to actually practice the Dhamma, meaning he has to eventually practice vidarshana. Why? Because that portion of the Dhamma, of the teaching of the truth, only exists when there's a Buddha. Because only a Buddha teaches that to the world. So merit helps us. Merit, the Supreme Buddha teaches, is another word for comfort. But if we want to, and merit helps us to practice meditation. Why? Because the Supreme Buddha teaches samadhi. If someone can easily attain samadhi, that samadhi he attains because of some past merit. So not everyone can obtain samadhi. Samadhi also needs merit. Our ability to obtain samadhi is based on our past merit. So merit is something that definitely helps us to achieve nibbana, like the end of suffering. But merit itself doesn't directly lead us to Nibbana. It's like a help, like an aid. We need merit. No one can achieve Nibbana without merit. The Supreme Buddha became the Supreme Buddha with merit. Every enlightened monk became enlightened with merit. Merit is there as help to us. But we also need to develop wholesome qualities, kusala. When we develop kusala and merit, then the person is working directly to achieve Nibbana. Kusala means it has the roots of non-greed, non-anger, and non-delusion. So when you give alms, let's say you give alms, you're collecting merit, but you're also developing a kusala. You're developing something wholesome. Why? You're practicing something that has non-greed as the root. Why? You're letting go of something. Letting go of something you own, and you're practicing letting go. So you're developing a kusala and collecting merit. But it's when you direct the merit and you develop that kusala with knowledge that it helps you to achieve the end of suffering. Why? Because you don't even know you're developing a kusala unless a Buddha teaches us that. So you only have this opportunity. Someone only has the opportunity to develop these things when there's a Buddha's dispensation. Does that make sense? So merit alone cannot help you achieve Nibbana. You also need to develop the Dhamma.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Vijay, you have a question?
Mr. Sensei, what are the other benefits of practicing breathing meditation? Like
What? That was loving kindness meditation.
the other benefits of practicing breathing meditation. The other benefits we can gain. Like, for example, when it comes to, like, other than attaining Nibbana, what are the other benefits?
Well, your mind, breathing meditation helps you focus your mind. So remember how I said loving kindness is the opposite of anger? Breathing meditation is the opposite of restlessness. So when someone sits down and focuses, he's focusing on one thing, right? So it helps his mind focus. So like, let's say someone has a hard time studying, his mind gets completely distracted. Then practicing breathing meditation will help him focus. His mind won't go to different things. Does that make sense? So breathing meditation is good for that. So if you guys have a hard time, do you have a hard time studying? So no, I shouldn't ask like that. If someone has a hard time studying, you can practice breathing meditation, but also practice limiting how much time you spend on social media. Like, for example, a lot of children, they think, I'm just gonna watch a 2-minute video, and then they click it, and then I'm just gonna watch another 2-minute video, and then eventually they watched a lot of 2-minute videos, and they spent 3 hours watching YouTube. So that's not, breathing meditation is not gonna help you get rid of that. You have to, with wisdom, like, know your restraints. Okay, so not like that kind of focusing that helps you focus on, without your mind getting distracted at that moment. Nimala, you have another question?
Yes. Out of excitement, I'm asking you. It's just my dream to meet an arahant. Is there an arahant in this world?
There's no arahants in this world. There's no enlightened monks in this world.
Okay.
Because the opportunity for an enlightened monk to arise doesn't exist in the world anymore. Like, the qualities, so for example, in the Buddhist times, the qualities that lay people had in the Buddhist time are the qualities that monks have nowadays. Then what's to talk about lay people, right? So monks, like, there's so much defilements in the world now that someone practicing the Dhamma, I'm not saying it's like the Buddha even himself teaches that the lineage, like arahants disappeared after 500 years after the Buddha passed away. There's no more arahants after that. It was only for a very short period of time. So there's no arahants nowadays. It's very, like, if someone says they are, it usually is through delusion. If someone practices meditation wrong and they think, oh, I don't have any defilements anymore. Some people, for example, when you practice these meditations, you actually like some of these formless meditations, it makes you feel like you don't have any defilements. Then you end up thinking, I don't have a defilement, I'm an arahant now. And that person itself becomes deluded and thinks he's an arahant. And then if that person tells the world he's an arahant, then you definitely know he's not an arahant. Why? Because the Buddha's laid down a training, there's a precept where it says you can't tell anyone that you're an arahant. You can't tell lay people that you're an arahant. So if there's someone going on YouTube saying I'm an arahant, then you know this person's 100% not an arahant. And you have to really think, why is this person saying he's enlightened? None of the arahants, none of the discourses ever say these enlightened monks went around saying, hey, I'm an arahant. I'm an arahant. They told no one. Only the Buddha says, okay, this person's become enlightened. That person's become enlightened. None of them went and said, I'm enlightened now. Why? Because someone who says they're an arahant nowadays are really saying it for gain, fame, praise, right? So yeah, there's no arahants in the world. Yes, you have another question?
Yes, but I heard that few years back, Bana Bante is called as forest monk. People call him that he's an arahant. He did not never say that he's an arahant, but people call that, he was an arahant. So even some people say that there are few arahants in Thailand. So how true is it?
So once in the Buddha's time, there is a layperson who gave, when monks came to his house, he would give alms. And then he would tell, I only give alms to arahants. And then he went and told the Buddha this. He said, Supreme Buddha, I only give alms to arahants. And the Supreme Buddha said, how could you, living the lay life, using money, wearing garlands, using cologne and perfume, using powders to make yourself beautiful, using cosmetics to make yourself beautiful, how on earth could you, as a layperson, ever know this is an arahant, this is not an arahant? Lay people don't have that knowledge. No layperson can say this person is an arahant, that person is an arahant. It's very easy to trick lay people. Why? Because I'm not saying like it's an insult, but it's very easy to trick a layperson because nowadays not much lay people have Dhamma knowledge. I could say something right here and it's a lie, and I could say, and you guys would believe it. Like if I said a lie right now, most of you here would believe it. If I had answered your question saying, yeah, there are arahants, this monk is an arahant, you guys would believe that. Why? Because that knowledge comes, that confidence comes with Dhamma knowledge. So in the Buddha's times, even lay people had good Dhamma knowledge. But even the Buddha himself teaches a layperson can't say this is an arahant, this is not an arahant. Why? Because even some arahants can't say this person doesn't have the merit to become enlightened. Like some arahants would say this person is would look in the future and say this person is going to leave, he's going to disrobe and then go back to the lay life. But then the Buddha sees this person is going to disrobe and leave, but he's going to come back and then he's going to become enlightened. So only a Buddha can say, this is an enlightened monk, this is not an enlightened monk. And other enlightened monks can say, this is an enlightened monk, this is not an enlightened monk. How can we, without removing any defilements, say this person doesn't have defilements, this person does have defilements? And I'll ask you another question. Let's say there's two monks. One wants gain, one wants praise, one person wants to become someone famous. Let's say that person then goes to the forest and he lives under a tree. Did he get rid of that wanting of fame? Did he get rid of that wanting of praise or glory? Those are still there. Just because someone puts on a rag robe, just because someone doesn't eat, it only goes on alms rounds, none of those are reasons to say this person is an arahant. The Supreme Buddha even himself teaches that you can't say just because this person goes on alms round, just because he lives under a tree, just because he wears a rag robe, that this is an arahant. That's in the discourses. So Don't get confused. Just because someone said this is an arahant, that's not a reason to believe that this is an arahant. If that person is an arahant, then that's good for him. When it makes no difference to us. Do you have another question?
I've undergone Vipassana 10 days meditation course more than thrice now. And I also did 10 days Pabaja. I became a monk here in India, in Bangalore. For 10 days, I took Pabaja. So I learned many things, and I learned that during Buddha's time, when Buddha used to give Dhamma to the lay people, so lay people used, just by listening to the Dhamma by Buddha, lay people used to get enlightened. They used to become arahants. Is it true?
Well, so there are incidents where these people would become enlightened, but that means very, very quickly their mind was suppressed of the hindrances and they developed vidarshana. There's no other way to ever become enlightened other than that, because the Buddha never teaches that. Every single lay person, because to become Sotapanna, there's 4 things you need to ever become the first stage, which is you need to hear the Dhamma, you need to have noble friends, kalyana mitta asura. That means you need to have noble friends in your life. Then those are the 2 external things. So you need to hear the Dhamma and you need to have noble friends in your life. Even if you hear the Dhamma and you don't have noble friends, you can't ever realize the Dhamma. Then you need to have wise consideration. You need to think according to the Dhamma. And then finally, you need to practice that. Dhammanudam patibadal. So if someone has these 4 criterias, then they can become enlightened. No one can become enlightened without these 4 things. There's no person, even in the Buddhist time, that ever became enlightened without practicing all 4. And the Dhammanudam patibadal, that portion, practicing the Dhamma, means they practice samatha and vidarshana. That could happen in a very short moment, that could take years. So those lay people, they had developed wisdom in the past, so they were easily able to suppress the hindrances and grab the concepts that the Buddha taught. They saw cause and effect, they realized dependent origination, they realized the 5 factors of clinging, and they became enlightened. Does that make sense? Okay, we'll take one more question because it's 9:30 now.
Yeah. One last question, please.
Yeah.
So, many people who were born during Buddha's time, so they are very blessed, and I feel very happy, that people were born during Buddha's time. So, how can one have a birth during Buddha's time?
So the Buddha teaches in the discourses, being born during a Buddha's times, being born in the area where the Buddha is born, being born in a place where you hear the Dhamma, being born where noble friends are, all of those things someone can achieve in their life through merit. Okay. So merit is because of merit, someone can achieve that. But you shouldn't think, I need to be born during a Buddhist time in order to practice this Dhamma. If you do that, you'll become heedless. I'm not saying you thought that, but the Buddha taught the discourses, and then laid down the precepts so this dispensation would last. That's why it still exists today. Because the Buddha saw that there are going to be people who, even after the Buddha's passing away, will be able to practice this Dhamma and achieve an end of suffering. So don't think you can't do this now. Don't think you can't practice the path now, because whatever you do even now will eventually help you in the future. Okay? So you need merit. You need merit, lots of merit to be born during a Buddhist time.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your patience. Good night.
Okay. So today we learned the meditation. We practice breathing meditation as well. We learned the Buddhist discourse and we collected lots of merit. All the merit we collected, we share with all the devas. May all the devas rejoice in this merit. May they provide righteous protection to all these lay devotees and their families. May all the devas also be able to escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share all the merit we collected with all these lay devotees as departed relatives. May all those departed relatives rejoice in this merit, and may they also be able to escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share all the merit we collected with our teacher 𝗵𝗺𝗂𝗂, with all the monks of Mahamevnawa, all the monks training in the Buddha's dispensation. May all the monks rejoice in this merit and also escape from this long journey of samsara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We share all the merit we collected with all these lay devotees and their families and loved ones. May all of you be happy, healthy, and well. May you all have long lifespan. May you all be able to realize the Four Noble Truths in this Gautam Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Everyone chant with me. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kama me bhante bhuri panya tathagata. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kama me dhamma sanditthika kalika. Kayena vacha chittena pamadena maya katang acchayang kama me sangha punya ketang anuttara. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. I will chant a blessing for you all. Abhivadana 𝗙𝗟 niccang vaddapachayino chattaro dhamma vaddanti ayuvanno sukham balang ayurarogya sampatti sagga sampatti mevacha ato nibbana sampatti minate samijjatu. May you all be happy, healthy, and well. 𝗪𝗺 𝗪𝗛𝗍 Namo Buddhaya.
Sir Sanisa, may I chant the forgiveness stanza, Sanisa?
Yes.
Sir Sanisa, dear devotees, let's go to the flow and worshipping at Sanisa. 𝗚 vandami bante maya katam punyang samina anumoditabbang.
Sadhu, sadhu, anumodami.
Samina katam punyang maihandatabbang.
Sadhu, sadhu, anumodite.
Sadhu sadhu anumodami 𝗚 dwaratena katam sabbang acchayang kamatame bante.
Amami kamatabbang.
𝗚 kamami bante dutiyampi 𝗚 kamami bante tatiyampi 𝗚 kamami bante.
May you be happy, healthy, and well. 𝗪𝗺 𝗪𝗛 Namo Buddhaya.